Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great Saturday. We're still hanging in there. Lots to do today. Thought I would just take a minute to discuss the A tool from the FloraGraph set, and also to say that when you think about the FloraGraph tools as a whole, they're never they were never intended to be stencils. Um, when I was trying to think all this through, I didn't want to create a tool that just caused you to repeat the same process over and over again. So I think I built into it some intuitive value that causes you to think about it. You really have to give it a little bit of thought, and hopefully you have an idea of where you would like to go if you utilize this after you get the basic concept of it down and make it work to your ideas. So this is just a general explanation of the A tool. So typically I start by finding a center line. Pencil. Okay, so I will establish two construction lines, and if you'll note, excuse me, on the A tool, there are arrows in various places around the tool, and that points in the direction in which you'd like it to go. Also, there are notches on 45 degree in 45 degree increments all the way around the tool to help you orient when you want to rotate this tool one way or the other. So, excuse me, I like to draw an arrow, to keep me in reference, because one of the things that I really ran into when trying to do this, especially in the beginning, is keeping my orientation right in the rotation. So drawing arrows, I've talked to several people who are very skilled in these drawing techniques, and to this day they still draw arrows because they still make mistakes, the same mistakes I was making. And it was kind of comforting to discover this when having some in-depth conversations. So keep that in mind with the arrows. Don't be afraid to draw an arrow on your paper, right? So it really helps you. You can always come back and erase, and also bear in mind as you're scratching this out, don't really expect it to be the finished drawing, the finished pattern. Think of it much like you would a doodle, right? So you can always come back and use tracing film or vellum tracing paper and lay over this drawing, so you can get your finished end product there. So don't worry too much about overextensions. Oftentimes I'll use colored pencils. Red is a favorite. Blue is a favorite, to keep things separate. So to start with, when I use the A tool, with the orientation aside, it's good to set up good habits, because in the beginning I would leave this center circle out, repeatedly. So I'm trying to discipline myself to follow some rules here. And then you'll see in the A tool there are four slots that make up for a circle. Okay, so this right here would be identified as the center. Okay, now I guess in future videos we can discuss throwing this off center. That is very useful in creating flow and direction, or revealing things that are underneath. So right now I'm going to start with that center circle and the outer circle, okay, and my direction. That's something important to bear in mind. So I know my direction is heading toward my right side here. So this is the transition line, okay? Now, this transition line on the A tool is specifically designed and placed to work for learning, okay? In the future, when you learn to space circles further apart, this art will change, okay? It'll get more grand than it is here, but for the sake of learning, right? So remember, our arrows on the A tool is pointing in that direction. So whenever we move this A tool, we're going to flip it, right? And we're going to line back up on our construction line. And if you'll notice, this transition line continues on, okay? And then through discipline, we're going to draw the center circle. We're going to draw the outer circle. And in the case of this demonstration, now we've established this. And so I'm going to draw another arrow because I'm rotating in this direction, in a counterclockwise. This will be clockwise. And feel free to draw these in where you feel like you need them to be. Okay, so that's the primary thing the A tool can do for you. If I had drawn more construction lines, which I did not, we can extend these out just a little bit. Okay, so I know I said we were going to do a 2-flower, but I'm going to change that. So now that we have these center line construction lines, you notice that they meet the template at 4 points. If you wanted to rotate this 45 degrees, you would line up on these 2 points here to give this more rotation. So with the transition exiting, notice the arrow's pointing upward, meaning that it's going in that direction. You've now rotated this flower the 45 degrees that you needed to. Now you could draw an intersection here at 45 degrees across here and line up, and maybe I should do that. Let me grab my square. I never have things in the proper place that I need them. So this may not be exactly true to form because I didn't square my paper up to my parallel bar, but I think you'll get the idea. So you can see where this transition line from where I rotated it on the notches, as you can see, this line now intersects right here on this corner. So we've changed that. So now, whenever we rotate the A tool, we can line up on that 45 degree line. Notice our arrows are still pushing away. Be real mindful of that, real helpful, because you can get upside down when it comes back to adding vine work or what have you. So I'm going to draw that transition. I'm going to draw the inner circle. See, I almost broke my own rules there. Draw the outer circle. And so now we've created this shape. Now, a lot of times I'll sit down to a blank page and I kind of have an idea, but I kind of don't at the same time. I'm searching for something. So if I had wanted a circle, so I'm backtracking here and I'm thinking, okay, so now my rotation's going this way. So how will I tie this together? So I know from my arrows that my arrow here is indicating this wanting to rotate this way. If you can see the flow through here. So this really aids me, and so I can draw that transition. Be disciplined to draw that center circle first. It's really important because you may forget, like me, I forget, and so there we've established that, and we'll draw the arrow again. Very helpful. And so, without really utilizing the arrow, I incidentally had this arrow drawn backwards, but as far as the flow, but this is a part of the learning, right? So you've got to get it in your mind, this flow, right? And so the arrow's looking that way now. So we're rotating through. Now this circle here, it will rotate through and it will terminate right here at the back of the transition, okay? And you can kind of pencil these in as you go. I do this frequently to keep me oriented. And so as I'm coming through this circle, I'm following through, and then this circle terminates, and it aims back at the center, right? That's the stem of the flower. See, I've gotten a little bit off there. So on this starter, what we'll call the starter circle, this is where it all begins. So this circle has a continuous connection all the way around. It still terminates at the stem, and so I'm just going to go ahead and draw this in back toward the center. And you can come back and clean these curves up later if you like, whatever suits you. And I'm going to add an arrow here. And so right here from the center, I'm going to draw this circle. Now you can use some of the other tools in the set. What's coming to mind now, and honestly, I'm not even sure if I have a scroll tool. I think they're all gone. I'll have to put together me a complete set here today as we go through. But you kind of get the idea here of the A tool. So it establishes a circle. It helps you with the flow with the arrows around the circles to the stems. Now, if you'll note on the tool, there's no indication of that stem, okay, and the inner vine mark, okay. The inner vine mark is designed to just be a guideline for you to lay the stems in where you would like, okay. So that's what that does. There are various curves. In fact, I probably could have used this by lining it up. And so now this slot right here could have been my stem. Okay, I could have used this tool to do that. Fair enough. So there again, with the straight edge of this vine, you rotate the tool around, and you could have also used it here. Used it here to create this stem, okay? And so without looking at the arrows, I want you to think about it. I want you to think about that stem and what it looks like and how it ties back together, where it terminates, where it begins. And so I think I've got it where I want it. Okay, so now I've created that. This is how this rotates around, and it rotates back toward the center of the flower. Okay, and that's the important part of this. And so I'm really not looking at the arrows at this point. I'm just looking at. I'm thinking. I want you to think. I don't want these tools to take away from your thoughts. I want you to learn. I want you to really get this orientation of flow and how this works around, because these spaces could change, and this transition could get much longer, and so I want you to think about that S. I don't want you to be. I don't want to see every one of your designs have this spacing. Okay, I know others pull their circles together a lot closer, like within 1/4 of an inch of each other, which is fine and great. It's not a terrible idea. So when you come in, and I'm skipping ahead just a little bit, but you can add your vine work right here, okay, as it would come out of this transition. So everything's flowing out of it. So as this rolls around, you'd have some vine work here, say. And you can choose your shapes. And there are other tools. The transition, the T-tool, I use the curves on all of the other tools to establish vines. But I want you to note something here. If I were to draw a straight line across here and draw these little diagonals to show the intersections with that line, notice there's equal spacing here, okay? Now if I were to come and draw this line across here, I'm going to find some equal spacing here. And I think that's important in getting started, right? So you can start acclimating your thoughts to how this works. And the same thing here, I'm going to put a dot that's going to give equal spacing. Now this dot could be put down here. It could be put as far back as here if you'd like, right? And so drawing these dots to show these equal spaces between the curves and the transition will help you to form the vine, right? And I think another important aspect to this would be in the balance. So if the same thing can reoccur here, right? So we're looking at equal spaces. We're looking at equal spaces. So we can see how this vine could come out this way, okay? Now this is, some people referred this to like the long line of a thing. So the important part of balance is, let's just say that this distance, whatever it is, in between, that's our minimal, okay? This is our minimal space where we would start. So that tells us that over here, this is where that vine would start, because you can get a set of dividers and set that space if you'd like, or you can just practice by eye. And you can tell yourself, well, that is the minimal space I need to get started. So you want to try to pull this out where they're equally spaced across, equal spaces. Equal spaces. You see that gives you some balance there, okay? So again, I want you to think about this. I don't want to, create a tool that has you repeating the same thing over and over and over again. The tool is nothing more than a guide to help you get started. And there again, this narrow space right here, you can come and look and find that right here, okay? Draw this across, and if you want to, you can draw in some dots to maintain that equal space on either side of this line, okay? So that helps guide you with your vine work, doesn't it? And so this distance here, you may find it down here, okay? And you can draw your dots outward. Now once you get past these equal spaces, you can come out and just kind of let it flow out or overlap. That's one thing I learned. I spent a lot of time watching Keir Schwartz videos on drawing, and there is much to be learned from him. I could watch those videos, I don't know, probably 10 more times and learn something new. Because bear in mind, as your mind expands to these ideas, these new ideas, you go back and you look at something like, I heavily invested in Don Gonzalez's training. And to be honest, I did not really get it on the first go around, okay? And So when I went back to re-review the information, the information was really good, right? It was really good. And so after the light came on in my mind on how this really works, that information got to be really valuable. Okay, but it was a little bit over my head to begin with, and that's really a personal thing. I've always thought of myself to be a slow learner in things. I think maybe in the case of this drawing style that I was so excited to try to do it and would fail, and I really wasn't giving myself an opportunity to see the light, so to speak. I remember Dan Jenkins saying to me through a message with whom he helped me greatly in the early process of this, and he told me, he said, Price, he said, when you finally see it, you're going to just feel like, wow, it was that simple all along. And I think many of us struggle with that. And so the goal of these tools is to help you get through that little spot. I think there's just this little area for probably more people than none that really needed that kind of help, and I just happen to be one of them. So just think about it. You know, these little areas here where you're looking for that equal distance, you can follow that out with this dot here. Say if it's in between, you just want to keep this equal distance here. And look, it doesn't always have to be this way. You know, the graduations of the curves can change as your abilities grow and change. This is just something to think about. This is I had so much trouble with transitions to begin with. It's like, okay, I understand the circle. I've drawn the flower. All the vines are growing underneath the flower. I get that. The outer vine work is still a struggle for me, and I tend to mimic what I see instead of really thinking about it. But one of the things that Carrie had really helped me with was overlapping elements. You know, say, you know, as this transition comes into here, and my brain's not totally into this drawing just yet, but I'll try to notice how this flares out. It starts narrow and flares out wider, okay? And this is a stem that will be under the flower, so to speak, right? And there's a space here that needs to be open, right, for the next vine to come out. So this would be what others have referred to as the short line. And then bear in mind this equal distance here. This makes up that next, what I've heard these called all kinds of things: stickers, vines, stems, stumps, and that seems to be a continuing thing with with all leather work. Even in the saddle shop I work in now, there are 9 different terms for the same exact thing. Not really 9, but you get what I'm saying. It's everyone speaks of it in a little bit different way. And so to continue on with the short line, it's going to come off of this curve and roll back toward the center, right? Remember our equal distance here, okay? So this is going to roll out, and remember it's going to flare out, and then it'll terminate there. I hope this is helpful. And so the next short line will roll around back towards the center, and then you got to pay attention to this line here, because the long line would start, remember, on that same distance off in between. You want to try to maintain that to have some balance, and then carry on with that taper to the sticker, if you will. And then remember your next short line will taper in off of that and roll around in. Your next long line, remember that distance there. You want to keep an opening. You got a picture of water flowing through, and then can it make it to the end? And so you'll start there, and roll this around. And for whatever the reason, my mind likes the long line. The longer the long line is, the more fluid the shape seems to become in my mind. And so as this line continues around, we're looking for that same distance right in between. And remember, our short line is going to continue off that last curve. And then our long line is going to continue from there. And it's going to wrap on around. Okay? So now when you look at this as a whole, you start going, wow, that's a lot. You know, it's a lot to take in. But if you will just take it back to these equal distances, whatever you prefer. And also, this is a good distance for me personally in tooling, because my bevel creates such an appeasing shape there that's what I prefer. Now, you may not prefer that, but and also keep a good eraser, right? I mean, things are gonna change as the drawing evolves. You're gonna want to try to follow along with this, right? So this is the line that's coming out of the transition. And sometimes I'll just feather this out to try to get a general shape. Now see, the distance on my inner stickers, I kind of want to leave an opening there, right? And I want to try to keep those about the same width. And I also want to taper this down so you can see how that works. And then with this opening, I know it's getting a little bit dirty and crowded here. So you could come back and establish this distance again and find the center and make this roll this way, right? And so you could connect. Let's see. This is my in line, so this is a long line. This is getting confusing, I know. Just bear with me. You're going to have to do some cleaning as you go. And you'll see these openings. And if you're starting to get disheartened by what you're seeing right now, forgive me. But just bear in mind in these simple functions, okay? This is just a group of simple functions. You know, if you can isolate those, they looking for a highlighter. I guess I misplaced it too. I never have everything I need in front of me when I get started, so I got to work on that as we continue on. But anyway, so we'll just continue on. And so I'm leaving a little opening here, okay? And that means that I could come out and drop some binds. I can curl them however I like, really. I usually do, right? And so that distance again is important. That's really what I want you to see here, is how these things start and how these things end. It's just I'm going to overlap this element here over previous elements, and if it makes sense to do so, you know, you can do it. But honestly, I wouldn't want this element to take away from this transition. I want your eye to follow that transition around. And so if I just cover it up completely, I could hide it. It's possible. If you felt like you wanted some space in right here, like if you're trying to control the percentage of backgrounding in your work, you can open this up and remember the distances again here. Then you can come out with a little pedal that does a little overlapping right there, you see. And of course your flower, the F tool, could be set. In one of the next videos on the A tool, we'll talk about moving that center over, off center, which will, you know, make your flower, you know, which would reveal more the stem work under the flower. You push it off to one side, but I think it's very debatable on you know what you're seeing here. And oftentimes I've seen that the petal that's next to the terminating stem, which I often draw a circle to keep me in check. I think I've maybe crossed over here from what I intended this video to do. So take from this what you will, but try to understand this coming off of the A tool for the next graduation of thinking. But just bear in mind this distance here of where to start these spines that come off this simple circle. And so just go with that. And I appreciate your time. I hope this was helpful. In the comments, please ask questions. I'll be happy to help you. That's why I'm doing this. If I don't hear from you, I can't help you. So maybe I'm lucky enough to say the right thing at the right time. But until I get that done, it would be really helpful to get feedback from you. And I look forward to hearing from you. And thanks once again.